Hey, what's going on? Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur podcast and back with Yves, Gigi, my business partner. And we're talking about the live event that we just put on out in Dallas, as well as something really cool that we wanted to share. It's going to be a resource available for people to, kind of see the industry, cash industry as a whole, and kind of things that we're seeing that we gathered a bunch of data from our community for that is going to really shed some light on kind of what's going on the financial side and some of the trends that we're seeing. Hopefully for you, it gives you a better idea of what you should be working towards as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So, Yves, this was what, our 15th event, I think?
14th
event?
14th
event.
Yep.
That's a lot of events, number one. This one was great, though. I thought this was just a really fun event, cool location. Guest presenter was great. I don't know. This was definitely up there for me. I thought it was one of my favorite ones that we've done so far. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like the change that I saw at this event is, I feel like in the beginning we had, as we grew 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 people who were physical therapists just trying to figure out business. And now I feel like we have, close to 200 people who are business owners and really trying to change a trajectory. Like I just had more, I feel like, complex conversations and more just like deep dive into business, where before it was just like, we were just trying to figure things out. And I feel like now we're not trying to figure things out anymore. We're really trying to scale, really trying to like take things to the next level. And I just felt that shift, in the conversations I had with a lot of our members.
Yeah, people are becoming more complex. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's interesting to have conversations with people that we've known for years. And, even a couple of years ago, it's kind of like, I don't know, like they're I'm not sure if they really want to go for it. And everybody's goals are different, based on where they're at and their sort of in their life and the opportunities that they have, the time, lots of things. And I mean, I saw a handful of people that a couple of years ago was kind of like, I don't know, maybe I just want to run like a bigger lifestyle business, to now they're like really interested in scaling and they have more complexity in terms of like just understanding of how to run a business. They are evolving in an interesting way. I think it's going to be really interesting to see over the next really 5 to 10 years how big some of these cash-based clinics can actually get. And maybe some of them end up going the hybrid route in certain areas. Some of them maybe it's just purely cash. Maybe some of it's out of network. Some of them may look more like gyms. I mean, it's just, what's interesting is there's so many different variations that people can do. And I had conversations with people with like at least 8 different sort of structures for what they were trying to do in terms of like different offers and what was working in their area. So, I don't know. I took away, I came away thinking there's not like one right way to do it. There's general principles that we think are correct, but there's so many different ways to make it work based on the type of business model you want to run. I wouldn't say there's like one that seems to be the best out of all of them. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I mean, in the beginning, I feel like we, uh, stamped our flag on cash only, screw the insurance world. This is all there is. You want freedom, do this. And now, just like you said, there are a lot of different options. It's like in-person work, remote work,
Yeah.
hybrid between those two, insurance with cash on the side, a blending of cash and insurance where you're kind of like, there are just a lot of different ways to cut the cake now. And I think you just said it well. It's like business principles, right? Like we've now been kind of on the business side, less on the clinical side for a long time. And we know it's just like, how do you get more leads in the door? You know what I mean? How do you make them their lifetime value increase? And how do you recruit people and how you lead your team? And like, cool, those things don't change across any of the business models. And like all these things can work if done well. And that's probably the biggest challenge and ways we continue to improve is just like continue to improve the model too, right? Which I'm sure we'll talk about. But like, there's always a way to make it better and constantly evolving. I think that's where we're at now. We're now like tweaking things. We're no longer like building the model. We're now tweaking them to make it better, to make it more profitable, to provide even more time freedom, to get to that point where you can autopilot your practice, and see 5 to 10 patients a week and make 6 figures or more. Like that path is pretty much set, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people we were sitting down with that were actively already doing that, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to a certain stage, and it really seems like if it's purely cash, cash only, and they have, slightly better margins. We can talk about profitability and things that we were seeing as well that's in this industry report. But once they get to about 50,000 a month in a cash based business, they kind of have a couple options. They can continue to really scale to 100, 150, 200,000 a month if that's the direction they want to go, and really, make that, um, even you can even make one clinic that size, right? Like one good sized clinic could definitely be $1.5 to $2.5 million a year in revenue. And if it's mostly, cash services, we'll see that profitability be like really high. The other side that we're starting to see is people that want, really to increase volume rapidly. So they're taking lower revenue for increased volume. And this is how it starts with insurance clinics anyway, right? Like they start to look at, well, where can we do that? And we work with a lot of insurance clinics that are trying to add cash services without necessarily having to add a massive amount of volume. It is interesting to see cash-based clinics go the other direction because I think it's much better to start as a cash-based clinic and then add a little bit of insurance to, in your area that might make sense. Or maybe you want to do an out of network approach, or maybe you really want to work with the Medicare population and that makes sense for you to increase your volume. You can still keep your relative average revenue per provider in a decent spot. But if you can do that with two more providers versus, not having the volume, then you're kind of making it up for it in volume versus sheer just sort of like profitability per visit. So you kind of have to ask yourself what game you're trying to play, and also what makes sense in your area, right? Like I don't live in a high Medicare population area. I don't live in a heavy TRICARE population area. I don't live in an area where there's private insurances from massive organizations, that are paying 200 plus a visit in network, for physical therapy. If I did, that'd be a different story in terms of how we would have structured our clinics, right? So it is interesting to see everybody's area is like slightly different. Each state can be dramatically different as far as what benefits, companies are providing and things of that nature. But regardless, it is interesting to see everybody come together and kind of openly share how that's working. Somebody came up to me at the event and they were like, "This is crazy, man. Like I just had a conversation with somebody who's, way ahead of me in the same state. And they were just giving me the exact playbook of what I need to do and how they were able to do what they did. And it was just like, just that one conversation was worth coming to the event for that whole 2 days, and you just kind of don't know who you're going to have a conversation with. And it's usually not one of us. It's usually somebody else, that they didn't actually even know was going to be there.
Yeah, 100%. We say it every year, but it is the conversations that happen around the content and around the structured events that people always seem to like uh, the most, and it's that little nugget. Yeah, it's just like, wait a minute, like, where'd you find your physical therapist at? Well, I did X, Y, and Z. Like, oh man, why didn't I do that? Or, man, you ran that workshop really, really well. Like, what did you do? And that's why these member presentations are such a hit, right? Like, we
Yeah.
basically just let our members who do something really, really well share their story. They love to share their story, and people get so much out of it because, it's happening in real life. You know what I mean? And they're just going to take something from it. And uh, yeah, I think that's awesome. It's the best part of the group is really that everyone seems to be very open-handed, even if you're in the same state, even if you're in the same city. A lot of these people, get together, which I think is awesome because ultimately what we're trying to do is, help as many people as possible and change the way, give more options to clinicians out there, and really, and I think we've done that. It's, that's the funny part. I say that as if like, oh, we're trying to do that. At this point, it's done, right? We're seeing that like, we are no longer this fringe thing. People are like, hey, cash is the thing. So now we just got to continue, I guess, just to grow it, and maybe one day be as a big behemoth as the insurance world is, or get to the point where more clinicians are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it'll be as big as an insurance sort of based model is. I mean, you're talking about, what is that, like $38 billion or something? Like, it's huge. But we're obviously like making a serious dent in that every single year. We see it every year. We see more clinics like this opening up, and every clinic, whether they like it or not, they're adding some variation of self-pay service. They have to, and they have to understand how to have conversations with people around these deductibles that are increasing. We've been seeing it happen for a long time. So yeah, I don't know if that will happen so much, but I will say one thing that I had a surprising number of conversations about was um, clinicians who had been reached out to by another cash-based clinician who had kind of started their own thing that was just do like literally solo provider that was reaching out to a more established cash-based clinic to inquire about working at that clinic. And it was it wasn't like one person I talked to about this,
Right.
that literally that came up to me. Now I can't talk to 200 people, in the 2 days that we're there, but I talked to a lot of people, and I would say I probably had at least 10 people bring that up that I talked to in small groups whenever we were moving around doing subject matter expert questions. In a group of about 20, I had people raise their hand, and in that group of 20, there was about 4 people that raised their hand when I asked, has anybody been reached out to by a clinician who started their own thing as a solo provider, but is now looking to work for a more established cash-based clinic. So it's a big actual, like, percentage overall of the people that are in there. And what's interesting is, we've had a couple coaches that have now done this and brought people on. Um, you know, by and large, it seems to work really well. And what I'm seeing, and what I think we're going to continue to see, is there's some people that just don't want to work for other people. Like they just don't want to work for a high volume clinic. And then there's some people that really want to be a business owner. You know what I'm saying? Like, some
Yeah.
people don't want to run a business. They just don't want to work for certain clinics. And then there's some people that, like, they just might. I think our guest presenter said this really well. He goes, the only reason to be an entrepreneur is that you're unemployable. If
Right.
you're not unemployable, it's not worth the pain. It's like you don't have any other choice. I agree with that. I think that he said that well. So, if you're just like, "Nah, I don't really want to work for somebody else," that's probably not enough motivation to actually get you to where you want to go, because this shit is really hard. So they kind of get to a certain point, they get to where their schedule is like kind of busy, but they're like, damn, this is hard. I'm isolated. And they make a decision of whether they want to lean into that and really, push to where they're going to be able to grow past themselves, really double down on becoming a great business owner, or they're looking for a place where they can work that has a culture that they want, that allows some, entrepreneurial opportunities, time flexibility, and they miss being in an environment with other clinicians and in a culture where it's improving everybody around them and not necessarily just isolated by themselves. I think you're going to see more and more and more of that. And if you're listening to this and that's you, and you're sitting in your office thinking, you're wondering, is Danny talking to me? Yeah, I'm very much talking to you, because if you're in that stage, that's the stage where you're going to have to decide whether I'm absolutely going to make this work, or it would be nice if this worked out. And there's a big difference in the mindset of that, because you borderline have to be, I don't know, like, obsessive over it actually turning out the way that you want, and
Agreed.
that you would never ever, like, I would never go work for somebody else's clinic. There's no chance in the world that would have happened. Just impossible. Once I got started. Before I got started, I definitely would have, because I didn't
Yeah.
know the other way around. But if that's not you, the good news is there's a lot of clinics that are growing. They're getting much bigger, and they're going to have a lot of opportunities for people like you to move into their clinics. And the other cool thing about you is, what it feels like. You know what the pain of trying to do your own thing feels like. So the respect factor you have for the person who's running that clinic, very different. And the opportunities you're going to get because of that are going to be very, very different, versus people that, like, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of entitlement around, well, I've been a clinician for 10 years, so I deserve to do this, and that. You don't deserve shit. Like, you don't deserve anything. That's what the money's for. You're getting paid to do your job, right? Like, if you want to be able to be entrepreneurial within a company and add value, that's a completely different story. But that's not what most people want. Most people just want to show up, do the same shit they would do, and get paid to see these visits, and then go home. And that, okay, that's cool. That's a job. We would love to give you a fantastic job. but don't confuse that with adding value and creating, a better opportunity for everybody else there, which is what the person that's running that clinic has to do. And that's a lot of risk. That's a lot of additional work, stress. Like those are the things these people can relate to. And it seems to be a very great transition over to another clinic because they kind of know what the other side feels like by that point.
Yeah. Let's talk more about, I don't want to go too deep down it, but the entitlement piece. Like what I think a lot of people don't realize is that you can only generate so much revenue for a clinic at any time, and I don't think people base their salary expectations, which I guess they don't need to, right? If you're going to work for somebody, you don't need to know the economics of exactly what's happening at the clinic. But ultimately, if you have 10 years of experience or 2 years of experience, unfortunately, like in a physical therapy clinic, you're not going to be able to generate more revenue. I mean, maybe downstream, right? You keep people around longer. Maybe you do bring a few people because you have a caseload, but ultimately you can only see so many people in a week and only can generate so much revenue. So, I feel like that's a lesson that needs to be learned for a ton of people. We're not a giant hospital system where they just, they have profit centers kind of everywhere. So I feel like that's, if you're thinking about going to work for somebody, just remember that, there's only so much that they can pay you. That's just the bottom line. And then two, you're completely right. Like I've so many examples of even people who've done a Rainmaker program, tried to do their own thing. They kind of realize, business is kind of hard, but now they're just a shoe in to go work for one of these cash clinics, and they're employee number two, and they get to grow with these clinics, and they already come batteries included, and that is huge for our mastermind members. But you're right. I mean, I think I don't know the statistics, but I would say 40%, 30% of the people that have started, especially these last 5, 6 years, have started clinics because they didn't have any other choice. Now you can come out of school and you can be like, oh, I can go work for a cash clinic. Like we hired 160 different employees in the last 6 months in the mastermind. There's a massive amount of people. And most of our clinics can't find good PTs
Yeah.
ultimately. So, if you want a job as a cash clinician, and have the opportunity, eventually to make some good money, then yeah, I would say go seek one out.
I think that some people look at that maybe as like, oh, well, that was like a waste of time. That was a failure. I don't think that at all. I think that if you have the courage to try and do something on your own, like that is incredibly rare, and that's something that I respect a lot. Whether you decide to go and work for somebody else at that after that or not, it doesn't really matter. It's not like I lose respect for those people. Like you have to figure out what works best for you. There's a lot of negatives to running a business, to be an entrepreneur. Like there's a lot of things that are not healthy about that lifestyle, about, the stress you take on, the just, I mean, the sheer risk you're exposed to on an ongoing basis. That may not be the right fit for a lot of people for a number of reasons, whether it be them personally or it be their environment and the family they have or the situation they're in. They may not be able to do that. So, it's not like I view it as a failure, because the skills that you build within that they're massive, and it's not like they get taken away from you either, right? So the way that I look at it and what I've seen with people that have done that with their employers that I've talked to about it, they're like, dude, these are the very first people we're looking at when we're building a new office and we want to have a owner operator in place, a partner that can focus on the business but not the whole business, and they understand elements of it, or they want somebody to move up to a clinic director role that's going to be able to manage people and has a lot of understanding of how the business runs, things of that nature. And maybe it might even be transitioning to a completely different career field for somebody, and that still carries a lot of weight as you do so with the experience that they've gained. So I don't think there's anything negative about it. In fact, I think it would be more negative if they thought that they want to do that and they just didn't try because they were worried that it wouldn't work out. Like there's a lot of people that are like, probably way more people like that than people that actually, take a shot at it and then decide, no, this isn't really the right move for me. And, I think there's going to be more and more of those folks out there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to talk to people about entitlement because oftentimes they don't even know what they want is somewhat unreasonable, right? Like they don't have perspective um, for any of that, right? They come in and they're like, "This is great, so you're just going to give me half the business, right?" It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? Like
Right.
what versus, I mean, I don't know. I think back for whenever I worked for the Starrettes, I remember like I built the entire tactical division out. I rebuilt their entire onboarding for every new coach that we brought on, literally on my flight to and from Australia, because I had so much damn time on the plane that I rebuilt the entire thing. It's not like I didn't ask them for equity in their company. I didn't ask them for a profit share. I just cared about the company. I was just trying to like make it better so that our coaches would be better and it would be better for everybody, right? Like I don't know why that entitlement side of things exists where people are like, well, if I do this, then you got to do this for me. It's like, dude, if you just provide value ongoing, you're going to get more opportunities than you can ever imagine, And if you especially don't ask for things in return, it's going to work out 10 times better for you because your reputation carries a lot of weight. People remember that and they want to work with people that they trust that like you're a team player, you're doing things the right way and you're not selfish about, sort of your approach to your time, your efforts, whatever. And I think that's where they're too short sighted with that. It's like they're playing a really short game instead of playing this infinite game.
Oh, 100%. I think when you go in there and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to build these things. I deserve X." That's just the wrong way to go about it, right? Like I love what you said, where it's like, "Hey, what's the vision of the company? I want to help the company, and if I do that and I provide value, I will escalate." Because ultimately, it's risk and reward. Like it's really risky to go run your own business, and if you want the stability of being in another business, you know, that's what you get. You get the stability, and you don't have the risk of going out of business or worrying about, am I going to get enough new patients tomorrow? So, yeah, it always is I think a touchy subject. Even then, I was debating somebody, just like through text, and it's I think it's health professional wide because like what is a nurse or a doctor, do they know how much revenue did they generate, how much they should do, how much they should get based off that, you know what I mean? Like it's they don't really know ultimately, so it's just a, I don't know if it's like a medical wide, maybe there's other professions like that as well, but I think it's a difficult subject to kind of understand. And, a lot of it's cultural because entrepreneurs are now, cooler than ever. They weren't cool when we were growing up. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you were a weird person. Now people are advocating for themselves more. So I guess all these things come typically with some sort of double edged sword because I love it because I want more entrepreneurs. I want more things happening. I love it in general, but there's probably going to be some downside to it too.
Dude, I remember I had a hard time introducing myself. I didn't know what to tell people I did, right? Because I would say I'm a physical therapist, and then
It's
you
still
know,
weird.
yeah, 'cause they'd be like, "Oh, what do you think about my knee?" So I stopped doing that, and I'll say, "Well, I'm an entrepreneur because we had like kind of multiple things that we were doing." And I remember I was at this fundraiser, like we donated to the school, and I was at this fundraiser, and it's just always small talk, awkward, whatever. And somebody asked me, and there was like three or four people standing right there. They're like, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur." And this one guy was like, he kind of started laughing. He was like, "Typically that means unemployed." And I was like, I started laughing, and I was like, historically maybe, that's
Yeah,
that would have been the case. But it is, yeah, it's funny, man. It's like entrepreneur culture. It's I think our culture is becoming more self-employed in nature.
definitely.
Across the board, a lot of people are going that direction. It's you either work for like a massive company or you're self-employed. That's sort of the I don't really see a lot of people working for small to mid-sized companies as much as you used to. I think they're freelancing or they're working at a big major company of some sort. But I think as a profession, it aligns with what people want in a lot of ways with time freedom. And I mean, at some point, you may have financial and time freedom, but you usually can't have both for a while.
Hmm.
You're going to be you're going to have a lot of time, meaning you're going to have no clients to work with and you're going to have no money because of that. So you have a lot of time freedom, but you're broke. Or your schedule's really busy, so now you don't have any time freedom, but you're making good money. And to get to the point where you have both, that's where you really have to grow a significantly bigger business. And that's where a lot of people end up getting tripped up and realizing, well, maybe this isn't the right move for me, or maybe it's just it's just too much because it's a very hard thing to do. So I don't know. I think maybe us putting content out about it obviously has something to do with why people want to go that direction. And I'm very actually, proud of the fact of how many people in our profession have started their own things. And I think we're going to see more and more and more. In fact, I'm really excited. We'll be at CSM this year in February, and I'm even doing a presentation on cash-based clinics and the sort of current opportunity that I see, as well as what we've seen over the last decade. And it's such an interesting topic to talk about. And I know we're going to get a lot of students and new grads, and that's awesome because that's who's really interested in that. And they're trying to, tee up their career path going forward. But I think there's going to be even more people interested in going that direction over the next 10 years, right? So that's going to be interesting to watch because for what we see now, where there's a lot of people trying and it's working out well and great. And then a lot of people trying and it's not working out well and they become great employees or they leave the profession. I think we see that times a multiple of, whatever, over the next 10 years. I think it's going to be even more and more likely that people are going to go that path versus, take a job working at a big in-network hospital or something. Like nobody wants to do that. Like nobody leaves school and it's like, I want to see 20 people a day plus. I want to have to be able to take PTO to go to the dentist. Like I want to be burnt out in 2 years. Like that's not what people are going to school for.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll get more of that data too, right? Like I don't know any of this, but like what's the life cycle of a nurse, right? Like how many people truly stay in that
Yeah.
profession for 10, 20, 30 years? And maybe that's what's happening to PTs as well, right? Like the funny part is we have a shortage of physical therapists, right? And like, why is that? Is that because we don't have enough PT schools? I don't think so, right? There are
No.
a lot of physical therapy. Like that really hasn't changed. Maybe there are the profession is growing, right? There is a bigger need for physical therapists than ever before. And I do think a lot of people are choosing physical therapy more so than before. But ultimately, my best guess is, and I'm sure yours too, is just the people are leaving the profession, right? They get emotionally drained, or they realize it's not for them, or yeah, they can't find a job that they enjoy because they're seeing, 4 people an hour. Because that's increased. Like we can, I did that presentation and Stay the Mastermind. Reimbursement on average has decreased by 36%.
Yeah.
Cost of living has increased in the same time period over the past 20 years by 75%. Like those economics don't work out. The only thing they can do is increase volume and increase workload. There's only 8 hours in a day. So that becomes difficult. And I think we're just going to burn through more people. And that's, it's just a fact. You know what I mean? And so good for us, right? Because we're trying to get more people to do cash PT. What does that look like for our profession going forward? I mean, TBD. Like, I don't know.
Well, what's interesting is, one of the one of the ways that insurance would eventually have to reimburse more is if enough people has opted out of taking it in our profession, which is ironic. Like if enough people literally were like, you know what, I'm just going to go flip this to a cash-based clinic, insurance would have to increase reimbursement for physical therapists to see people in network. Period. So maybe it goes that direction eventually. Or maybe it comes down to clinics that are just like independently going out to businesses and just saying like, let's cut out the middleman on this shit. This
Right.
is what we need to make. This is going to be cheaper for you as well. You won't have these work comp claims, stuff like that. I'm sure there's plenty of that already, kind of happening, but you'd have to find the right fit and the right person for that to work with. And I mean, maybe it's more we work towards a lot of these clinics are leaning in towards health, wellness, longevity, these things that people are looking for that involve living a high performance, pain free life for as long as they can, and that is a growing percentage of the population that realizes, well, I think I'm going to live a lot longer than I expected. I'd like to be able to do the shit I like to do. So maybe I should start investing back into my health because it's been a minute since I've done that. And I see a lot of baby boomers that are, you know, I guess, I don't know if baby boomers 50 plus, maybe not, 50 to sort of 65, 70. We see a lot of people in that range that are really leaning hard into like, okay, I've done a bad job of taking care of myself. I've worked really hard. I put myself in a good financial position, but like I could have all the money in the world. If I'm not healthy, what does it matter? Right. And like, that's a huge emphasis of reinvestment.
For sure. This is so pertinent because so I was a few minutes late starting this. Right, I go to the dentist, and my neighbor grabbed me as I got out of my car. He's like, "I've been meaning to grab you forever," and he's like, "This guy's he's retired. I'm really bad with ages, but 60s, 70s for sure." And he's like, "I'm buying a sauna, and like I need to just like tell me what to buy." And I was
Mm,
like, "That's you know what I mean? Like that was kind of mind blowing to me. It's like." This is, he's like, my son told me to do it. I want to be healthier. He thinks I'm leaving a lot on the table. And, he's like, I'm going to spend $4,000 to $6,000. He's like, I need to know which one to buy. And I was like, that just shows you, right? Like, because I put data together, like the data is that most people care about their health and wellness. And I love data, but ultimately, I've never had a 7-year-old neighbor come up to me and tell me, hey, I want to buy a sauna and put it into my
yeah.
backyard
I
like
mean,
you do, And so, yeah, no, for sure. And that's such a big opportunity for clinicians, right? Like, we've been saying it for a decade. Like, we are perfectly positioned to help these people stay stronger and be healthier for life, and it's cool to see that grow along with our niche.
yeah, his son's probably an accountant listening to a 3-hour Huberman Lab podcast, that just
Definitely.
just not even in the health and wellness field. I mean, that's how far reaching this is now, that I'm starting to see more and more people that are just like non-clinical, non sort of like performance-based jobs that are really just like interested in learning more about health and longevity. And I don't think it's a fad, man. I think it's literally a lifestyle change you're starting to make. I mean, all you have to do is just look at the percentage of people that don't drink alcohol anymore. It's gone up
Hmm.
dramatically. I mean, it's just like it is such a higher percentage than it was 10, 20 years ago. And obviously people still do, but I know tons of people now that are just completely like, they don't drink at all. They don't, I mean, they just are no stimulants, no sedative. I mean, I know people that have just stopped drinking coffee, and
Yeah.
stuff like that, just because they just want to just be themselves. They want to be, no stimulants, no anything that's going to go into their body that's maybe addictive in nature, or affects their organs. They're just concerned about that, which is really interesting. And I think for us, and this may be a good segue into some of this industry report stuff that we see. We're seeing a couple trends that um, are definitely something to keep an eye on. So number one, we're seeing a increase in continuity visits. People that have, people that are patients of theirs, clients of theirs that are coming back for ongoing visits. And for a lot of people, this is settling somewhere in between 20 and 40% of their visit volume. And the bigger clinics that we work with, they obviously have a higher percentage of continuity. The smaller businesses, the ones that aren't maybe able to generate as much revenue, they have a smaller percentage. So it correlates really well. The more of your revenue that comes from people coming back without you having to go and get new volume, the less new volume you need to snowball schedules to have multiple providers stay and grow busy schedules, right?
Right.
And I think that is directly correlated to the fact that people want this type of work, and they're looking for it in a number of different ways. And I mean, you look at how many functional medicine clinics are popping up, how many personal trainers are leaning into things like longevity and functional health, and things of that nature. Look at like sonic cold plunge, labs that are popping up all over the place. Like, some of this stuff I think is a bit of a fad, but I don't think that this idea of wanting to reinvest in your body is going anywhere. And we see it in the numbers as far as continuity and recurring visits going up across the board, which is really cool to see. Because imagine if a third of your revenue each month was coming from people just showing up for ongoing, work. It's easier on your staff. It's easier on your business, and you get to build these like really true long-term relationships with folks, helping them achieve really cool, lifestyle goals that they have, and be able to really elongate the time period that they have where they can be active and enjoy the stuff they like to do.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like we identified this, like you and I, like maybe 3 years ago. We just saw the correlation, like the businesses that did the best had the best continuity offers, right? And so we put a lot of content around that over the last 2 to 3 years. We used to have this kind of minimum, right? It's like you got to be at 20%. That's the minimum, and now that's grown, like you said, like people are hitting 40 to 60% continuity, which is really cool. And we just know it's healthier for the business. It makes it more stable, recurring revenue. They need less new patients, which is typically difficult in a cash practice. And I do think people enjoy it more. Like now I'm getting new evals. That's fun. I'm seeing people for a plan of care, but I'm also seeing people to work on performance and strength. And like that variety of schedule for me was absolutely huge. So I love that. And it, on a macro level, how much has this changed, Danny? Like, think about it. Like in PT school, what did we learn? Get that person better as quickly as possible and then discharge their ass. Do you know what I mean? Like I taught that. It's probably still being taught in school. And now we're like, no, like just don't discharge them, keep them around and keep them healthy, And so at what point, here's an existential question. At what point will we start teaching that in PT school? Like, it's great to get somebody a result. I love that. But why would we stop there? Like, it was literally an ugly word. We literally were like, if you don't discharge them and you keep working with them and it's maintenance, you won't get reimbursed. And that's bad. So
Yeah.
don't do that. And so now we're flipping it over. We're like, no, keep them around, provide value. And so they can stay, our tagline of Made to Move, healthy and active for life, and people want that, like you said, because they are living longer and they're realizing that the quality of life can really drop if they're not strong and they're not fit and they don't feel good.
Yeah. I think in the in-network world, it's still discharged when their visits are up. I mean, it was like that whenever I was in in-network clinic. I don't think that that's really changed too much unless they have like cash programs on the back end, which would be smart for them to do. Like I'm thinking like big
So
corporate
smart.
clinics, you know what I mean? But you also have to know how to work with people in that capacity. And that's another really big linchpin is the fact that a lot of folks don't know what to do with somebody after their pain is gone. And so they do discharge them because of lack of skill set to be able to work with somebody ongoing. But keep in mind, like one thing that we saw when we implemented small group training classes at Athletes Potential was that there's a subset of people that like there's people that we work with that are going to go back to their CrossFit gym or their functional fitness facility or their group classes and stuff or training for their triathlon, and that's cool. Like they've got that exercise box checked. Um, but there's a percentage of our population that is hurt and is actively trying to get back to physical activity, and they don't really know where to go, and they don't know who to work with, and they don't want to get hurt again. So the only real match for them is probably going to be personal training of some sort. But even then, you have to hand somebody off to a personal trainer that really understands more special population work. This isn't. I mean, these people are coming off of injuries that have stopped them from being able to do things in many cases for years and years and years. And so when we opened up, wanting to, work with these small groups and just testing it out, we were shocked. We had massive interest in it. And not only that, but like the people that we worked with, they stick around forever because now all of a sudden, I mean, it's with only a couple of days a week of actual structured training for somebody who's trying to have general physical fitness and wants to be able to go on a hike on the weekends and wants to be able to play tennis with their friends, non-competitively, just like play a game, but not like maybe try to win a tournament or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's general training, right? And what they want is the ability to be able to say yes to more things that they like to do and not have to sit on the sidelines and watch. You know what I'm saying? Like then the amount of people, if their kid or their grandkid asks them to like play, I don't know, like a little pickup touch football game, they would have to say no. Like I can't do that. I'm worried I'm going to hurt myself. Yet they really want to do it. They really want to participate, and they can't. And that's the kind of people that we actually have a really great opportunity to help because the truth is they're not going to go to a functional fitness facility. You probably shouldn't send them to one because they're not appropriate for it unless they're going to do a really long, elaborate on ramp to get them, ready. And ongoing work with them in a way where we can do hands-on work and help manage some of their home exercise plan updates and corrective exercises and mobility work that can bolt on to whatever training they are going to do. I mean, that's really valuable, and they feel better. And when people feel better, mean, that's worth a lot, man. Like people assign a lot of value to being in less pain and being more mobile throughout the world to be able to do the shit they like to do. It's even hard to actually quantify. I don't know what you put on there as far as like what's the value of being able to say yes to going hiking with your friends instead of saying I can't do that because I'm worried about my knee, and missing out on the social element, the community element. What does that do for your life expectancy? Like it's crazy. We know how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, every single guru, every single thing you read, the number one thing that you have to take care of before of everything else is basically your health. You know what I mean? So like it's basically worth everything, right? Like we've had these conversations on the podcast before where we know people who've sold companies for a lot of money, but if they don't have their health, mental and physical, like they essentially have nothing. So like, we've had these ongoing conversation, probably do another podcast on it where it's just like, we don't put a lot of worth in what we do, but literally what we do is like one of the most important things that people literally can't get anywhere else, So I'm like, why are we not charging, a massive amount of money? Because what you just said is worth is worth everything, man. Just be able to play with your grandkids, like all these things. We've kind of like discounted it. It's not a big deal. It's like, no, literally it's everything. Like if you don't have a quality of life like that, it's very difficult to enjoy it. So being mobile and being active, I think, is actually, it's huge. It's everything. And we have to understand that we are really valuable in that arena.
Well, you bring up a good point about if we look at research on life expectancy, quality of life, blue zone research, all kinds of stuff. There's a huge element of community associated
Mm-hmm.
with people that live longer. Now, you might get that with family around you. You might get that with your, you know, uh, local organizations you're involved in. All kinds of different things. Um, and to go back to sort of this small group training idea, the community side of Misery Loves Company is really helpful. It's a built-in accountability tool. It's something that people show up because they want to see each other. They check in with their friends a couple times a week. A lot of times, these groups will end up going to grab breakfast once a week with each other or something like that. And it's really cool to see because, yeah, all right, maybe we're working on whatever split squats and getting their heart rate up a little bit, and some mobility work. We could make it that superficial if we want, but to have a place where you can check in on an ongoing basis to get uh, access to a group of people that have similar health goals, that expand your network to other people that are like that, and increases your community effect in your life, frankly increases your life expectancy and your quality of life based on extrapolating that out to data that's been collected in a number of different ways. And I do think that's a big missing link for a lot of people. So looking at, and again, just kind of going back to our industry report, which we're not going to have too much time to get into, which is fine. We'll put it up as a resource at PTBiz as well.
Yep.
But one of the things that I thought was very interesting was only about 25% of the people that we work with are actually doing any sort of small group training work, which maybe physical space constraints. It could be the fact that they're in a gym. It could be many different things. But when I talk to people about it, and I was with Jake, who is owns Athletes Potential now. They do a ton of it. I mean, they have a wait list for that in Atlanta, and he just was blown away. He's like, "Why would people not do this? It's the
You're right.
greatest way to increase lifetime value for the business that
Yep.
they've found. It's such a cool way to be able to work with these people long term." I mean, the people that they work with, like they go on like vacation together, man, and like they go and do like hikes together on the weekend and stuff, and it's just like what a cool way to get people healthy together in a community, a small enough community where it's not like overwhelming for people, and it's a great revenue addition to the business as well. So I think these are the areas where we're going to see business owners be more sophisticated about how they're layering in things besides just visits that are going to offset or decouple from just traditional physical therapy. I think it puts them in a much better financial position, a better profitability position, a better recurring revenue position, which is obviously huge. And if
Right.
we're really talking about how do we make the best sort of long-term effect with folks, it's also far more cost effective to go that route than it is to work with a PT every single week one-on-one. It's literally half as much as just like a weekly visit, or it's on par, if not even a little bit less than working with a personal trainer. Yet you're missing out on the community element of what's going on, and it's really not that much more individualized. It's probably quite similar.
Yeah, check like I love what you said. It checks a lot of boxes. Checks the community piece. It checks, doing strength training on a regular basis. Frankly, probably the mental health side. You know what I mean? Like, and you're still in a clinic, so if something goes on, you've got physical therapists right there. So yeah, it's such a big opportunity, and I think a lot of people just get stuck on the logistics of it. Like, how do I sell it? Do I have the space to do it? And there's a lot of reasons. Um, to delay it. But ultimately, it can bring in a lot of recurring revenue, provides a lot of value to the people around you. We know the stick rate is really, really high. We do it at Made to Move as well. And like, again, our therapists like the variety. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody does, but like, hey, I don't have to take any notes. I can just go train people and then I'm done for the day. You can hire it out if maybe you don't have PTs, but like, yeah, it's such a great value add.
Super simple. One of those things that I think is leaving a lot on the table for a lot of folks. And something to think about if you're really trying to add in that layer of sort of ongoing work with people that I value a lot, man. Like I never got to work with anybody like that when I was in the military. Just didn't happen. We barely have enough people to work with actual like injuries that are going on, and to work with people in more of an ongoing longevity, standpoint, maintenance, and it's it's rare. It's a really cool thing, and for you to match something up with your business that's good for the business, and with your clients that's great for them. Like
Mhm.
it's such a great win-win. That's what you got to keep in mind. Is it's worth it for you to learn how to work with people past them just being hurt, for the outcomes you can help them get. And frankly, they need it. They need people like us that can help them with that, because it's so confusing. You get on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and they're just bombarded with a bunch of information that who knows how valid that is, who knows how valid it is applied to their specific scenario,
Yep.
their background, their goals. Like, it's just general stuff out there, right? Should everybody take 20 grams of creatine a day? And should everybody be looking at peptide therapy? And should everybody be doing like plyometrics and sprinting and all this? It's just like, yes, maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, it depends, right? And that's where the individualization of that person is so important, and where we can be so beneficial and decrease some of the clutter that's out there, where what happens is they just get confused and do nothing. And that is not the right place for them to be. They're not going to make any change that way.
Yeah. One of my favorite, it was like an Instagram reel. And he was like drinking tap water, right? And then he played a video of somebody like, no, tap water can kill you. And then he went over and drank like, LaCroix, like, no, this will kill you. And it was like 6 different versions of water. And there was a video, and he's like, wait, just don't drink water at all. Like, that was one of the videos actually, where it's like, actually, it's a blank and it'll dehydrate you. And they're like, oh my God. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think, uh, particular nowadays, like, yeah, what do you know what's right for you ultimately, right? And we're clinicians, and we know kind of like it depends, and you've got to kind of figure these things out. But for a lot of people, yeah, they're probably so confused, and I do think that's a really big area we can help them with.
I think more people need to drink out of a hose. Like,
Dude, I love drinking out of the hose. I do it every morning.
you still drink out of a hose every morning?
Dude, yeah, because I have my athletic greens and I work out in my garage, and there's always just a little bit there. So I dump some in the hose, and then I'll literally, but I put it in there and I shake it up and I drink it, and it always has that
Oh yeah.
coppery taste, right? And
Yep.
so maybe there are metals in my body now. I'm not really sure, but like that taste, it literally brings me back to my childhood. It makes me happy because,
Did,
like, yeah, we drank out of a hose when we were kids. Maybe that we're dating ourselves, but like literally, I almost instantaneously feel like I'm 7 years old again, and I'm
did you
happy
ever did you ever
following it.
drink out of like a PVC pipe that was set up like basically it's like a horse setup, where it's a long PVC pipe on two sort of stilts, and they would puncture holes in it, and then they would turn it on, and the pressure would just shoot out of the little holes of the PVC pipe, and you have to stand there with your mouth open trying to catch like the littlest bit of water during football practice with your pads on. It was like the easiest way to get, like, I don't know, a ton of people water, but like the tiniest bit of water, because it's the hardest thing to actually like get much water unless you put your mouth directly on the PVC pipe, which is probably not happening.
What are you talking about? What kind of crazy shit did they do in
You've never
Augusta?
seen this? Oh my God.
No, maybe I'm in the minority. I didn't play football. I played soccer, but like I've never heard of that. That sounds crazy to me.
There's some Texas and Georgia water buffalo, like this
Like hurting the kids. Here, drink this, and just shoots into like
dude.
what?
And the worst part is like if people are like we're dehydrated as hell, doing
Yeah,
like multiple practices a day.
2
And
days.
if
Yeah,
you were like an
crazy.
underclassman, you just get slung out of the way so some dude could get more water. So you got even less. And yeah, and it tasted like it came out of PVC pipe, So, I
Learn
think
something new every day.
yeah, like we've come a long way. Let's just put it that way. But probably good to finish it on that one. Guys, I hope hope this was helpful. Hope that, our insight sharing some of this stuff from the event gives you, I don't know, I think of it like a 30,000 foot view. I think that's kind of where we fit in right now, is just being able to see what's going on a higher level and be able to share that is pretty awesome. At least, I really like seeing these, how these things connect and what the trends are and being able to share those. And this is what we saw this weekend. This is what we saw with our industry report, which again will be available on our site as a resource you can download. Pretty interesting stuff. We had a bunch of clinics that participated in that. We really appreciate them sharing their data. Yves, anything you want to finish with?
No, I'm definitely excited. I feel like we have such a great sample size, right? If you want to understand what cash clinicians are doing right now, because everybody has some form of cash, mainly all cash, some hybrids, and you were like, well, what is their prices right now?
Yeah.
What kind of packages are they selling? Like we talked a little about continuity. So like check that out. And I think be like, ooh, where do you stand? Do you feel like you're in a good spot? So yeah, I'm really excited. I was really excited to give that to our mastermind. Really excited to kind of get that out in the public so you can kind of see like, hey, where you're at. Like, are you doing good? Are you doing poorly? We really have never had these benchmarks before. So excited to get that out into the universe.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Get that industry report at physicaltherapybiz.com. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.